Well, good morning from a very, very sunny Belgium. For Tom's Tourney, we're here back for the Battle of Brugge. Myself, Tom Styles, alongside a brand new commentator, voice on Ulti TV on the Tom's Tourney stream, Rachel Douglas, joining me. And Rachel, we've got an excited game in the women's division this morning. Kick us off with who have we got? And it's brilliant to have you here alongside us in the sunshine.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, this morning we're starting off with a game in the women's division. We're going to be seeing Grut ladies from the Netherlands facing off against Discobolo from Italy. It looks to be an exciting game. I think we've watched the teams warm up. They've come out with a lot of energy and a lot of excitement to be here. I think for both sides, it's great to be here in Brugge and playing what might be, I think, their first tournaments of the season. For Grut women, it's going to be an interesting experience. This is typically a mixed team. And just for this tournament, they've split into open and women's teams to get more pitch time, to make some connections, and to get just a feel for playing with each other in this dynamic and seeing if that can then strengthen their overall mixed game. But it means it's an interesting addition to the women's division. It's a side we haven't seen play in this division before, so it's going to make for a very interesting game. Yes,
and those 2 years of downtime have given everybody a chance to grow up, and particularly Grut women. So many of us will be familiar with their story coming through the junior division. A lot of these players, when we last saw them out here, were youngsters, and now they look like a team of really complete athletes, and that's going to be a big change. And I'm very, very excited to see Grut. Big fans of those, watching them out in Cincinnati in 2018. But Tom's Tourney is back. It's 2 years. It's been fallow, and the team here in Belgium have done a fantastic job welcoming everybody. Rachel, you've been here as a player before. What does Tom's Tourney mean to the players that come out to Brugge for the weekend?
Yeah, Tom's Tourney, I think, is sort of synonymous with a good time. I think when I've played here before, we've always been very lucky with the weather, and so in my memory, it's sunshine. It's kind of a beer with your team after the game. It's sort of hanging out and having a nice time, but also playing some really, really competitive frisbee. So I think for teams here, and I know for the organisers, they're ecstatic that we're back. They're ecstatic that we're here and able to be putting this on after a long hiatus. And yeah, I think everyone's just coming in with a lot of energy and a lot of excitement.
Yes, we certainly are. And the commentary team and the technical team, we're here with Ulti TV filming for Tom's Tourney this weekend, are delighted to be back as we get ourselves underway in the backfield for Grut with a ping down to Floor Kalatz, who sends it straight away into the end zone. It's an easy first score. Isa Monku collects, and that's a sort of clean offense that this Dutch team are going to want to see throughout the game.
Yeah, you can see very clearly there that this is a team that come in with that sort of calm confidence, and they know they have those connections. As you mentioned, a lot of this team on the Grut side have been playing together for a number of years, despite their kind of young ages. And you can really see that in that sort of the confidence and the decisiveness of that first point, I think.
Yeah, strong. We expect to see a lot of Floor Kalatz out here on the field. She's had a couple of years of recovering from an injury. Just after Worlds, a couple of months after Worlds, she was injured, but she's back to full strength. And we spoke with her just before the game, Rachel. Seems like a player confident about the season, confident about the year ahead, and confident about her own ability to play at her highest again.
Definitely.
So Discobolo, Anna Giulia Manati spins it to the middle of the field, managing to move it up, down again. Another fast flowing ping up the sideline, repeating exactly throw for throw what Grut did a moment ago. Omen side passes Discobolo into the end zone for the score.
Teams, I think, on both sides, you can see that they've got some decisive offense. I think it's often quite at the start of a game and at the start of a tournament, you obviously want your offense to be connecting. It's difficult to come into these first points fired up on defense. And I think that what we're seeing at the moment is sort of both teams finding their stride in these early points, just of what they want to be doing and how they want to be playing on offense. But I think as the game progresses, we're going to be seeing increasing intensity on defense, which maybe in these first couple points is just sort of starting to kick in.
Lezia Capello with the assist there, and Elisabetta Venturi with the score for Discobolo. So clean so far from both these offenses. We've seen 8 passes and 2 points. The sort of high quality ultimate we were hoping to see. A disc going outside as Jenna Jansen, one of the youngest members of this team, is going to bring it to the centre of the field. Grown up with a disc in her hand, part of the Grut operation since she was 14. To get the disc quickly out to Leninger. Collart's cut is marked out. Now a bit of pressure, and Jansen's available. Looks down the line. Collart's was about to spin to that far side. Leninger goes up the line. But it's a reset across to Schulten. Now into the hands of Minard. Good pressure from Discobolo, taking away the options, but they keep coming and they keep arriving, and Jensen has to just take an extra couple of strides. No layout required. Reaches out with a lefty for a grab and a second point for Grut.
I think we're seeing that increase in intensity there on defense. Discobolos were really working to make sure that they were right on the shoulder of the Grut ladies throughout that point, I think. But Grut's showing that they're very comfortable to take those resets, to look for the open option, and to take those extra few seconds to make sure that they're hitting someone who is free and is able to then make the next pass. So I think we're seeing the intensity ramp up. I think that was definitely a more contested point than maybe the first two. And yeah, the Discobolo defense working hard there to stay with the Grut side. But ultimately, their connections and their comms on the disc getting them to the goal line there.
Jansen proving very flexible, starting with the disc in hand as a handler and finishing the point with disc in hand as a scorer. Discobolo is kicking off again. Giada Bolognesi in the centre of the field with a lovely low release. Forehand, hotly contested, cuts downfield. It arrives in the hands of Negrini, and a turnover. First turnover of the game.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. You could see she just didn't quite set herself after making that under catch on that pivot. Was slightly off balance on that throw.
Boss. High grab, second time round, does come up with it. Susanna Schlob. Fingertip touch. We're going to put that down as a block to the 24 shirt of Francesca Berna. Sends it quickly, but that's going to be dealt with in emphatic style. Given away back to Grut, and they are let off the hook. Lola Dam now. Good quick feet and explosive power of Vella Jensen. Muskie. Sending it downfield, seeing the fast cut to both. Oh, starting and finishing again. The Grut ladies are in the form, and that is a break to the Netherlands.
That was a beautiful pass for the score there from Tinkate. Really saw the space, saw the cutter, saw that the defense was maybe sitting a little bit under, and was able to put that throw out right in front, around the defender, in front of the cutter, into space, and give the receiver there a lot of time to run onto it. And I just think that was an excellent option, really well executed.
Discobolo rushing a little bit, maybe with that first deep shot, Rachel. saw a free player, maybe where they weren't as free as they needed to be against this Grut ladies team.
Yeah, it's difficult to tell what the perspective would have been on field. I think from this side, the offensive player did have a step on the defensive player, but perhaps that throw just wasn't quite enough power behind it to get out in front where that could really be maximized. And then perhaps, you know, when you're playing against a side like Grut women, which are young and athletic, and you know they have the jumps and you know they've got the legs, perhaps you just need to make sure there's that little bit more separation if you're going to be trying to hit those deep shots. For that to go up safely. But it is hard to say. I think that's a perspective that we have from this sideline, but perhaps on field that wasn't quite as clear. So I don't necessarily think it was a wholly wrong option, but perhaps it could have been more ideally executed, and perhaps the parameters could have just been a little bit more comfortable.
Now Bolognese getting us kicked off. Oh, the disc down across the field. The target was Venturi. It was Francesca Berna overthrowing a receiver a little. And another opportunity. Jette Baldor to Lola Dam. Undercut was a little bit blocked out, maybe the stack a little bit close to that sideline. Lola Dam's disc is poor. That's into the turf. Ninke Muski had to go to ground to even have a chance at that. And Berna with a reset disc under a lot of pressure. Back to Bolognese. And across the field now to Brighetti. Nice high grab from Berna. Low, too low. And some nervous throws here from Discobolo.
Yeah, the Grut ladies are putting them under quite a lot of pressure on defense, and we are seeing some really nice movement from Discobolo. And I think the options they're taking are good, but it's maybe just like making sure that they're ready for the execution and setting themselves so they can deliver the passes that they know that they can make.
A vertical stack here from Grut and a big disc. The receiver is free. Great position to get that disc out into space. Maybe taking one extra pass unnecessarily, and what a wasted opportunity for Grut. They were on the goal line. They could have milked that in. They could have found a way. Either way, they've rushed it, and Discobolo with a quick hand to knock that one out of the air. And if you're going to give us a chance to get the disc back, we will take them.
Yeah, a little bit complacent, I think, on that final pass, which is a shame after such a lovely lead up.
Giada Bolognese kicking us off again. Another low disc. They're maybe throwing into these tight spaces. They feel like they need to rush it more than they need to, and it's not working out so far for Discobolo. Venturi. Sorry, it's not Venturi, that's Bardot. To Dam, continues the cut, and Susanna Schlob into the front corner. Nice isolation for the handlers. The stack in the end zone staying well out of the way there, Rachel.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing. I think that's obviously something that they've drilled. They know what movement they're looking for, and they know where the option's going to come from. So sometimes the best thing you can do on the field is just make space for your teammates and let the play progress and be implemented as you've done at training. That looked like something that's been drilled and that they knew what they were looking for.
I love that hand signal from Lola Dam.
Yeah.
Why is nobody in my corner?
Exactly.
There we go.
Lola Dam knew the play and was saying, hey, you guys know someone should be here. And of course, they hit that space, and that's what worked for them.
Yeah, so 4-1 is the score.
I think Discobolos are looking for nice options, but I think at the moment what we're seeing is that they're trying to hit a lot of the inside-out throw, which is those tight throws right into the middle of the field coming in a very, very short, small window. Those throws have to be early, they have to be fast, and they have to be quite aggressive. And unfortunately, at the moment, they're just not completing. They're not finding that. They haven't quite found this the synchronization between the cutters and with the handlers on those options, which is a shame. I think that's been most of their turnovers have come from those aggressive inside-out shots, which maybe they need to make an adjustment and either look for an around or just tighten up those options a little bit more. And I think we'll be seeing fewer turns from Discobolo.
We were expecting a hooking game from Discobolo, and here comes that now. It's opened up a big arm. A nice cut from the deep player there, Capello, and she's got a bit of space now. Can she jam it in? There's a fumble in the end zone. Maybe the player wasn't where they needed to be. But yeah, we were just saying there, Discobolo, before the game, the coach said they got a good long game, and that was the first time we've seen it.
Yeah, I think they know they have a good long game and they know they're looking for those options, but I think they also are recognizing the nature of the players that are playing defense. And I think it is important to make sure before you take those options that you do have that good amount of separation, as we saw in that earlier huck attempt that didn't come off.
Scholten to Kalatz, down the line, flowing, fast running from Minard. Another one of the super youngsters that now looks like the complete athlete for Grut. Lola Dam finding the space out to the wing here. Izamonku. Kalatz easily just stops the run, waving away, conducting traffic with the fakes. Monku again. Very calm with the disc now. Grut, the energy has died out of the point a little bit. They're going to take their time and make sure they get it in. Cuts coming. Minard flows back across, creates all the space to Cullen. Cullen into the end zone. Very calmly done. Izamonku with the score.
Yeah, Discobolo is doing a nice job there, I think, to try and contain some of that those forward throws from the handlers. You could see some of the defense on the handler positions were poaching off a little bit, trying to kind of take away some of those forward options and make sure that the group were looking more for swings than to move forward, which I think it worked to a point. The challenge there is that with a team like this, they're happy to swing, they're happy to keep the disc moving, they'll look for the options, they'll wait until someone's free and then they'll be able to hit them. So I think that was a nice effort on defense to kind of take away some options and try and contain the forward threat. But unfortunately against a team like Grut women, that they'll take their time and they'll find those options when they arise. It
was an impressive show of calmness. They've kind of scored in 3 passes up until now, and there they had to take a few more options. Really good spread of stats. Izamonku with 2 goals so far. Apart from that, the goals and assists are spread equally with 1 each across the full swathe. But that's the 3rd break in a row for Grut, and they're starting to find their gear in this game, as Discobolo have called a timeout. So we are here in Bruges for Tom's Tourney. Wonderful to be back out on the green fields. Yeah, I think we've arrived and suddenly we had a discussion about does anyone actually own any sun cream anymore? We looked at the weather forecast and we knew to expect sun, but it's still somewhat a shock to arrive and be sitting in glorious sunshine, sunglasses on and soaking up the rays. So it's lovely. It's lovely to be here, and I think there's a lot, like I said before, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of excitement, and I think that's something that you're seeing in the teams on the field, but also just in the atmosphere. There's a huge amount of appreciation, I think, that we're able to be back and be doing this. So it's something very special, and it's definitely feeding into the atmosphere here at Tom's Tourney. You know, Tom's Tourney is such a staple part of the Ultimate calendar for so many years. And I think people had come and for years and years maybe started to take it, the event was, they'd taken it for granted. Having 2 years away, the atmosphere in the breakfast tent this morning, it was just brilliant. Everybody's delighted to see each other. Everybody's buzzing to wave at friends that they've missed for 2 years. The international ultimate scene has just been parked. And now it's alive again, and Brugge is where it's all happening. Tom Stiles alongside Rachel Douglas for this opener in the women's division. Grut versus Discobolo, the Italian team from Bologna in the white, and Grut from all over the Netherlands in the red and blue. We've got the Ulti TV crew with Mike Palmer pressing the buttons Lolo and Edgar on the cameras. If you are watching, just pop a comment of appreciation for the team. They're bringing you all this footage. Very much appreciate it. A little bit of contact there, brushed off nicely by Giada Bolognesi. Better flow from Discobolo. Munsterhus. Good continuation cut from Scavoni. Looks to the end zone. Has to go back around. High grab required for that disc. Bolognesi. Oh, it's a nice pass, not quite in the end zone, knocking on the door now. Can they find a way in? Venturi pangs it over the top. Oh, is a hero maker of a pass, but the hero couldn't quite get to it in the end, and it disappears into the turf.
That was very unfortunate. Up until that point, that offense was beautiful. I think that timeout, they obviously had a discussion about the structure and the game that they wanted to play in. They came out and they absolutely executed that. And I think, unfortunately, that pass was just a little bit of sort of end zone focus, and I think they'll be upset with themselves for that one, I think.
Not quite executing the plan. 10 cat. Down the line to Muskie. Fast cut of Elise Bose has gone to the end zone, but they're going to take their time here, bringing it back around with Lola Dam again, pointing to the space. Why are the players not here? She's sets a very high standard for her teammates, and when they don't meet, the hand signals explain to everybody her disappointment. Franca Tenkate again. Recycling now down the line. Good pressure from Discobolo, but someone's exposed. There's a free player, somebody. Where are they? Now they're cutting into the end zone. Going to have to come back for a reset. Lola Dam again. Why is there nobody on my resets when I've got a swing pass in my hand? Muskie. They're running out of energy, running out of ideas here, Grut. This is poor, and the fourth turnover, Lola Dam can't connect. It was a bit rushed. That was the first time we've seen Grut not look 100% in control.
Yeah, it's just a little bit too much behind that disc. I think their offense down there was not quite what they were expecting. You could see a number of times people looked up and expected to see someone there to follow on the around, and they weren't there. And I think that perhaps led to a little bit of frustration that was carried through onto that throwaway there.
Going for these break passes every single time, and really slightly too ambitious. The space that is being opened up by this distribution from Giada Bolognesi is really creating a lot of options from Discobolo, but you could see her body language after that turnover. We've created the space, we need to put in the score, and they're not doing it at the moment.
Yeah, it feels like they're getting closer. That sort of looked like a nicer play. It looked like they were moving in the way that they wanted to be moving. It's just at the moment not that final connection. Like that throw didn't have quite the amount of sit. It was sort of, it came in at a little bit too much of an angle, and perhaps that player maybe could have had another step of space to work with, just to make that a safer option. But these are all adjustable elements that hopefully we'll see Discobolo working on as the game progresses.
Really good defense from Discobolo. And that was a high stall count, jack to no one in particular. Down the line, the swing passes, dump cuts that have all been taken away from hot defense. The Italians finding their way into this game, maybe sensing a bit of those Dutch nerves. Bolognesi now on a high stall count of her own. Finds a gap through the middle. Oh, it's a visionary put over the top of the defense. And now there's space down this line. She looks it off. And resets maybe being a little bit overcautious now. Venturi finds the disc back to Scavoni. Scavoni looking for the dump pass. Bolognesi cutting up the line. She finds the disc to Marta De Luca and into the end zone. Discobolo with the second point of the game for them. And great grab.
Working hard there to find the space. I think that you are seeing a lot of concentration of effort on the field. At the moment we're seeing, I think throughout that point, that both teams really tightening up and not creating space. Maybe we were seeing two cutters hitting the same space, which kind of took them both out of play for that cut. And I think we saw that turnover come from the Grut side, where they didn't have options and they had to sort of try and take a deep high stall deep pass to try and get something, to try and find something in some space. And I think that was a result of the play just condensing down a little bit too much. And I think we saw that again on Discobolo's side, but they just managed to kind of run through, and that caution that they exercised, perhaps over caution to an extent, but when you've had those disappointments in previous points, maybe it's useful to kind of move a little bit more cautious, and now they can kind of adjust. But I think they were calm on the disc there, despite the fact that maybe some of the cuts were coming in quite furious and into sort of similar spaces and small spaces, and they waited, and then they found the right option, and we had an excellent score there where it went to ground to make sure that she secured that point for them.
Yeah, Jolion Munsterhuis, probably murdering that name. It's not an Italian name. And Marta De Luca with the assist, but it was a team goal, worked with hard defense and some clever offense. Grut here having again to find some options. They've got a deep option for days and days of space, and having got her foot position a little bit wrong, Marta Cullen adjusts perfectly and explodes into the ground to grab that one. But Discobolo are creating a few problems for the Dutch here.
Yeah, that was a great catch. I thought looking at that, I thought that was a misread, and I thought it was going to be a disappointing moment for Grut when they had seen such an open player and really wanted to hit that space, that maybe that was going to be a disappointment. But these players have just caught a lot of discs in their lives. They've spent a long time from a young age throwing and catching and playing, and I think you can see in those moments when you just sort of manage to stick your hand out and somehow catch it at a low angle, an awkward angle. That just comes from having done it a lot of times, and just being used to making sure that you make those big grabs. I do think Discobolo, their defense is hottening up. They're tighter. They're putting a lot of pressure, but on some of these early passes, we have seen a couple times now where there's a player who's fairly free deep, without a mark sort of in their immediate vicinity, which for a side like this, you can't let those go, because they're gonna hit that. They're gonna throw those deep throws, and then you're going to be scrambling to recover. So I think there is still progress that can be made there to tighten up on some of those defensive matchups, and just making sure that you're with your player from the beginning to the very end of the point.
Discobolo from Bologna, obviously the huge ultimate city in Bologna. The premium women's team there is Shout, and occasionally when a hot player arrives on the Discobolo scene, they do struggle to hang on to them, as you might expect, being in such a big city. And they have shot it straight deep. Oh, brilliant read and a great grab from Venturi. That disc was moving, but she had eyes on it from the moment it left the hands. Marta De Luca now looking to add to her assist total. Dumps it back to Berna. Berna into the end zone. It's a well-worked point for Discobolo. Venturi on the end of it.
Beautiful offense there. I think that longer put at the beginning of the point, they were quite lucky maybe that Grut ladies had their backs, because I think that came out a little bit lower than the thrower perhaps intended, but thankfully the Discobolo ladies were heads up, that she saw it was coming and made sure to secure that before anyone else could get a hand to it. And then from there they calmly moved into space. They put discs out in front of their players, they waited for people to get free, and worked that in really, really nicely. And I think that's the kind of offense that we've seen at different points throughout the game for Discobolo so far, but I think that's maybe the first time we've seen it throughout the whole point and really kind of executed to the standard that I think they're looking for.
Yes. Now, if I was to make a comparison, you tell me if this is fair, Rachel.
Okay.
I would say that the Discobolo players are having to throw into tighter windows because the Grut defense is on the shoulder for every cut. And when they can do it, when they do it, they've got the ability, but they're working in finer margins, whereas when we've seen Grut execute their offense, they've looked like they've had much bigger distances, much greater space and freedom to play. Do you think that's a fair statement at this point in the game?
I do think that's fair. I also would add to that, though, that I think that Discobolo can also be helping themselves out a bit more by making more space. I think that at the moment we are seeing a number of occasions where you have multiple people cutting into the same space at the same time, and with those smaller windows, that just makes it that creates an additional challenge for themselves. I think where we've seen them really, really shine is where they've managed to get into flow, and by virtue of where people are on the field, there is more space to work with. So I think from static discs, from the pull, they can really be trying to generate that themselves a little bit more consciously, and that will also help them out to create more space.
Yeah, different offensive look from Grut here, using Lola down, not in the handler position, but coming out of the stack. Floor Collart's cutting down the old faithful handling pair as she spins it into the end zone. What a beautiful disc, floated to perfection into the back of the end zone. Izumonku sprinting onto it for a third goal of the game. That was class from Grut.
That was a beautiful throw. That was just weighted perfectly. She saw the option, and I think that also speaks to really understanding and knowing how each other play. When that throw went up, there was a sort of a little part inside me that went, oh, I'm not sure that's a great option. Maybe that window's closing. But the throw was perfection. It went around the defender, right into the back corner of the end zone, and just sat down and came in really softly. And I just think that probably couldn't have been executed any better. That was lovely. Really, really nice.
It's interesting to see Floor and Lola, two players, when they play as part of the mixed team, you tend to see them deeper. They can handle. They're both very, very good with the disc. But because they're so athletic, you do tend to see them deeper. Here they're playing more of a handling role, and Izumonku got to draw attention to her 3 points from the game so far, doing really well.
I think it's a really interesting strategy for Grut to be putting in these teams into the open and women's division. It, like as you're sort of alluding to, it really forces everyone to take on a different role to what they would usually play, which as a sort of a training strategy for a mixed game, you know, it creates new opportunities just to really explore and those connections and put people into different roles and see what comes out, which I think, when they come back together, can only lead to sort of a stronger mixed team as a result of that. And yeah, it's great for people to be building confidence across the field and being able to explore different parts of their play.
Yeah, it's going to be so exciting watching Grut play in Cincinnati later on in the year, but right now it's the European scene here, the battle in Brugge as Tom's Tourney kicks on. And in this opening women's game, it's the 15 shirt of DeLuca. Resets again to Berner, and across the field to Venturi, who sends it deep. There's going to be a player underneath it. Is it perfection? Oh my goodness me, it is! Back corner, inches from the sideline, inches from the back cone. A couple of high quality long discs here in this women's game.
That was a lovely throw, and that, I think that's sort of when we spoke to the team before the game and they said they were looking for those long options, I believe that's what they were talking about. That was perfectly weighted, lots of space, put beautifully into that back corner, and I think not just the execution of the throw, but the other side of it, on the receiving end, there was that extra step of separation between the defensive and the offensive players, which means that they just were able to take go a bit calmer into that catch, take their time sort of as much as you can when you're running down a long disc, but to know that they have that space and to really just make sure that they're able to collect that. But I think that was a beautiful play. I think it looked a little bit challenging in the middle at the beginning. There was a really tight defense and the players were really having to work to get open, but that's where we see Discobolo take what they're given. If they're blocking the unders and they know that they've got those deep options, and clearly they have the throwers.
Yeah, Venturi from the middle, from the halfway line to the back corner where Giulia Scavoni was waiting. Janssen to Menard.
His own defense we're seeing now, which is a great change of pace.
Let's see how Grut adapts, and they do not adapt.
Very effective.
Miscommunication, and Menard in the wrong place. Discobolo with a chance for their first break of the game. Big high jumping pressure, but they calmly adjust, they wait, the cut comes, it gets found, and that is a swinging of momentum towards the Italians there. Discobolo with the first break of the game, and they bring it back to 7-5.
Great strategic move there, I think, by Discobolo. When teams are, you've sort of been playing the same defense for a while, to come out and to put a different defense on, and particularly a zone look where, the offense won't be set up for it. Typically, to play against a zone, you're going to want to have another person back behind the disc, so you really make sure that you have those options to swing and to move backwards and to move sideways to try and get around that cup or that wall that was in front of the disc there. And
it's Francesca Berner with the put, and Venturi in the back corner. So those two players we've seen so much with the disc in the hand, operating very nicely in that end zone set as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Able to capitalize on that turn and comfortably put that goal in. I think I very much appreciate seeing that switch up of defense, and I think it clearly worked out very well for them.
Yeah, so Grut looked a little nervous, didn't they, when the zone arrived? Didn't adjust.
As I said, when you catch teams on the back foot and they're not expecting it, it takes a moment to recognise when a team is changing up their defence and going from a person-to-person defense into something different. It takes that moment to recognize it, and I think they just managed to keep that pressure on, and Grut were just slow to adapt on that one.
Oh, and now maybe it's getting to their heads now. Menard making the receiving error. It was a simple pass, but didn't grab the fingers around it. Maybe that's a slightly too big a disc over the back and hits the back fence, and luckily the player doesn't. But Grut looked so comfortable with the disc in hand at the start of this game. They had 3 breaks to take it to a 5-1 lead. And now Discobolo very much feel like they have got the bit between their teeth, and they are pressing and challenging and asking the questions of Grut, which they didn't at the start of the game. Or if they did, Grut had every single answer. And Leninger and Kalarts exchange a quick couple of short discs. So they're going to work through the space here. Long options are available. Spicy hammer finds a bit of space. Cullen looks up the line, waves that one away. Back to Janssen. Leninger through the middle. Cullen on the far side. Kalarts. There is some space deep now. They are starting to operate that deep space, but opening up the bag of indoor tricks. And unfortunately, that one goes awry. They managed to find a lot of space, but again, a mistake against this Discobolo zone.
Yeah, pulling off some nice hammers to work over the top of the defense there, and then unfortunately turning on just sort of a forehand throw. There's a call.
Yeah, a few more hand signals required there. There was a call in the middle of the field, a pick call, and Kalarts having a little discussion with her counterpart, Lizia Capello, in the 10 shirt. Yeah, Grut's junior, well, they came together from the junior system in the Netherlands, which is so strong, and had played an awful lot of indoors, so Kalarts has got those throws. Coming out of the back of the stack, it's well received by Amochi, and unfortunately her disc downfield does not find a receiver. The target was Capello.
I think the number 11 on Grut got a hand to that one. I think that was a defensive play.
A floor Kalarts block. Menard to Leninger. Calmly out to just near the sideline. Zeto Badol. Back to Leninger. Finds a gap through the middle, but a run-through block. She baited that. Chloe Lee just waiting behind her mark. There's going to be a call. The disc is still in play, I think. Don't think there's been a stoppage. No, there has been a stoppage.
There's confusion, I think, there about what just happened. The disc was knocked out of number 24, Berner's hands, but immediately recovered by one of the... She immediately recovered it, and therefore, what is the call there? Perhaps contact, but it was a player running through to get downfield. So I think there wasn't actually a call, but there was some confusion over that.
Yeah. So it's back in now. Reset. Berner again. Had a lot of the disc in her hand. Quick flick forward to Capello. Capello and Kalarts having a right old battle out here. Hotly contested. A little bit too much contact in the end zone, but it's well received by the Italians. They've broken Grut again, and they've brought it back to 7-6, and what looked like an absolute romp for the Dutch is now looking like a really tight contest.
Yeah, Discobolo were fired up, and you can really see it. It was evident in that score there. The defense is right on their shoulder, but the offense is pushing and coming through and making sure that they're getting that catch and they're getting that score. Discobolo is really fired up now, and I think have come in with a lot more energy in these later points, and are really giving Grut a run for their money.
Yeah, that's, it was interesting to see Kalartz and Capello in the center of the field there, having a good conversation after that pick call. Neither of them, shy of showing how unhappy they were with each other about it.
Yeah.
And then they were fired up and going for the cuts, and Capello really stepping into an extra gear there, creating the space and getting that point. Front corner, and Jensen, Janne Jensen, the 16 shirt, pressing all the way through. But Capello, so it was Venturi. Was it Venturi with the grab in the end?
I believe so.
She's acing this game so far. 3 scores and an assist for Elisabetta Venturi.
Yeah, I think it's difficult when you're having a tight game like this. Sometimes the calls come up, and you've really just got to make sure that you're sort of managing yourselves. But equally, this is a competitive environment, and there's a lot of passion on the field. So people sort of manage that how they can.
Yes, Menard just taking a moment there and not getting that disc moving quickly. Almost waiting for the zone to arrive. Now it's a deep shot. Kalartz deep in the end zone, has to adjust, coming in over the shoulder. One of the hardest discs to catch, but adjust she did. And I love the confidence that the throw had there in the receiver. Floor is deep. She's in the end zone. I'm just going to send it. She'll find it, and she did.
Yeah, moving the disc nicely through the cup there, not being too intimidated by the fact that there are 4 defensive players sort of staring you down, pushing through, getting those short passes, and then making sure they're keeping an eye on what's going on upfield. And there was enough space. They trust their receivers, and so able to put a nice disc up. The path of that disc was sort of moving a little bit more towards the middle of the field. I wonder if the defensive player had maybe been a step or 2 back. I think they might have had a position to make a play on that disc. So I do think that was maybe a slightly through the path of the disc, it turned into a slightly tighter option than perhaps originally it was intended to be. But of course, they've got receivers who are going to bring that down and make sure that stays as a group score.
Yeah, it was definitely not textbook. It was a suboptimal disc path. But Kalartz, when you have a disc that's coming in over your shoulder and almost away from you as you catch it, trying to judge your line and the point at which you make contact and decide to close the hands is so difficult, particularly beginner players. They get that wrong all the time. So Kalartz showing her experience there.
Yeah, it was a great read of the disc and great awareness, I think, of where the defensive player was coming in from, and making sure that she got her hands to the disc in good time before any play could be made. So an excellent score by the receiver.
Yeah, 40 minutes into this game. We're playing 55-minute slots. We will nail the end of game rules by our next commentary, but apologies. We will, as soon as we know how this game's going to finish, we'll let you know. Big disc, downfield, but pressure all the way. Verla Jensen, not really worried by that. Happy to watch it.
Yeah, that just sat a little bit high. I think that it kind of went higher than perhaps was intended, and therefore kind of came down slower, which gave the defensive player opportunity just to make sure they got that foot in front and got the play on that disc before the offensive player had an opportunity.
So Grut with an opportunity to get a break back and start re-establishing a bit of stamping their authority on this game. Lola Dam, really no options to make a throw forward, and has to go right across the top. And how lucky Grut to still have the disc after that. They managed to make a connection and into the end zone. They weren't quite in. She took off outside the end zone before she caught it and had the disc in her hand. And Dam is misplaced to catch that one. The disc should have been ahead of her. Deep shot available downfield for Discobolo. Can they see it? No, they didn't get there quite in time. Hard work done by the legs of Wilhelm. The 28 shirt for Grut, catching up the yards there, taking that option away.
Oh, amazing grab there.
Again being forced hard. Giada Bolognese sends the disc downfield. Venturi on the end zone line. Is she in? Is she going to call it in? Bit of a short discussion. Venturi, this turf, myself and Rachel have had a walk around on the turf here. This is a hard field. It's a bit slick on top because of the dew. That'll probably be drying out now. But this is a solid turf. And it will not be comfortable to lay out on at all. Venturi picks herself up, brushes herself off, looks into the end zone. There's options there. Capello is waiting, and over the top and to the back of the end zone. And Grut, having had that opportunity, Discobolo's staying with the zone, despite the fact they were on offense. That's nice awareness from them.
Yeah, able to be quite adaptive there, I think, which evidently has really worked out well. Great. I think great heads up on that pass. It looked like quite a high stall count throw. Perhaps it was sort of, I'm going to put this out, and the overhead's quite a nice option for that. Sort of put it high and trust that my teammates are going to work as hard as they can to get under it, and that worked out for them. So Discobolo coming away with that score, perhaps not exactly as they planned to execute it, but effective nonetheless.
Grut will be happy that they managed to take the disc off them, and less happy with how they dealt with it once they did, eventually turning over in the end zone. But honestly, they were lucky to get that far, because the Discobolo got fingers to the previous pass as well. We're at Tom's Tourney in Brugge in Belgium. Myself, Tom Stiles, alongside Rachel Douglas, bringing you the action on the women's division in this opening game. Discobolo from Italy in the white, and Grut ladies from the Netherlands in the red and blue. Grut, you will know, is a mixed team normally. They separated the two squads for this tournament, and we are delighted to see them out here and performing as a women's side. Anna Minard, again the indoor throws, they're very happy to throw them, and Flor Collart's now in a position with lots of space around her, receives the disc back, just exchanging 1-2s with Izamonku. Now the defense arrives and they quickly jab it in, never getting to stall two, never getting to stall one really, and Grut danced that one into the front of the end zone for a 9-7 score. Incredibly
decisive point for Grut there. Moving the disc very quickly, I think, as we saw the disc past the midway point, I think nearly every defender on Discobolo's was unfortunately just on the back shoulder. Grut were really pushing to get downfield, and they were able to move the disc between sort of the three handler positions, just move the disc forward quickly on short passes, and then get it to the end zone line and wait for a good option to come up. But they are very quick, very decisive, and didn't really give Discobolo an opportunity to play defense there, to be honest.
We've got an exciting weekend of Ultimate lined up for you. I'm going to say thanks to Corey Sostre, who's doing the stats for us down here, doing a great job as well. We've got all sorts of numbers flashed up across the commentary source screens. And Michael Paul and Didzis Maldaris in the commentary box for the next one. The game coming up after this is going to be Is No Good versus Kapow, the French powerhouse, with some hot American pickups. Joe White and Tim Schock coming across the Atlantic to join the Parisians for this season. They're out here for the summer and they'll be back in Cincinnati, powering up the French. And we're excited to see how that turns out. Michael Paul and Didzis Maldaris behind the microphones for that. But right now we've got Grut ladies and Discobolo in a tight game. In the middle of the field now, Capello gets it back to Bolognese. Low release. Taking away that dump option very effectively. He has to look again. Oh, it's a poor disc. It was panicky, the stall count had got high, the first dump option had been marked out effectively, and well-earned turnover from Grut.
Yeah, I think the defensive pressure is sort of making some of these cuts just a little bit less enticing, and people I think are pulling out of them perhaps a little bit early, which is putting pressure on the throwers, and I think led to that turn there.
Kalatz with asking the questions and getting the answers. Elise Bos laying out hard from Kalatz's it was a poor throw from her, and a timeout called. Very wise from Lola Damp. Seeing the team not quite establishing themselves after such a great start. They got three breaks in a row early in this game to have a 5-1 lead. But Discobolo have rallied with 2 breaks of their own to bring it back to 7-6, and they've traded with a little bit of edgy, cagey play from both these teams, Rachel.
Yeah, I think that Discobolo came out maybe slightly lower energy than Grut managed. Grut went in to take an early lead, and it looked like it was going to be a very decisive game for them. But Discobolo's done a great job of really raising their energy. They've become more focused on the offensive plays that they're making. Their defense has been a lot tighter, and they started to put Grut under pressure, and the momentum of the game I think shifted to them. I think now we're seeing Grut answering. I think the last few points we've seen some really decisive and quick-moving offense that really plays into their strengths. And now we're seeing them also trying to just make sure that they keep hustling Discobolo on D. And I think it's now up to Discobolo to say, okay, we see you raise your energy, let us raise ours to the next level as well. They've already done it once in this game. It is hard to keep that momentum and to sort of demand that your team keeps the momentum, to not allow the other team to get back into how they want to play and to sort of take charge. It's hard to deny that to the other team, but I think that's the task that Discobolo have now. They've proven that they have those plays, and they've proven that they're able to really raise their level. So I think it's just a case of ensuring that continues and that they keep that momentum, and they don't let Grut set the pace and kind of dictate these next few points.
Grut setting up then, coming out of that timeout call with Lola Damp, and Floor Kalatz sprints and shows that the work she has done in the gym and on the training track is paying off. She looked like that was miles ahead of her, but she put the afterburners on, and my goodness did she cover the ground. And Lola Damp knows that she's got that in the bag. Trust the receiver. And Grut re-establishing themselves with a break to take it to 10-7.
Yeah, they want this game. They know that they have the kind of the skills and the experience to seal this game and to make sure they come away with the win. So really just sort of demonstrating that they've played together a long time. They have those players, they have those discs, they trust their receivers. And Floor Kalatz there, who we spoke to before the game, who's come back from an injury. This is her first season back after a long time out. But I think proving quite conclusively there that she's fit, she's fast, and she's ready to play. And just absolutely burning it into the end zone there to receive a beautifully weighted disc sitting out in front of her, but really demonstrating that she can cover yards and make those catches.
Discobolo from Bologna, 15 shirt of Marta De Luca on the far side. Gets it back. Brugge, low release to Negrini.
Pick called.
Lots of Italians watching this morning. Simone Samarini, Ferricchio Borani, wherever you're watching from. Filippo Fontana, Alberto Zaccari, If you are watching and cheering for Discobolo, we're very welcome to have you along here. Hope you're enjoying the coverage. High stall count now, pressure on Berner, and she throws it across the top, looking for anybody really, but it was stifling defense from the Netherlands.
Grut doing a great job to take out those options and just really make the cutters feel like they're not able to get free, and the handlers looking downfield just really not seeing those options.
Floating across the top, Lola Dam reads it and lucky to avoid contact there. Spreads it immediately to the centre of the field. Scholten, hammer to the back corner was not the option, and see a little bit of frustration there. She's saying a contact was made on the disc. I don't think that was the reason it went into the goalpost. Yeah,
if there was contact, I think perhaps that's maybe a little bit of luck. I think that was probably not the optimal option for that moment. I think both sort of the throw choice and also the direction of the disc, that sort of from the centre of the field throwing directly forward a hammer into where most of the players were standing. I think I'm not sure what option she was seeking to take there, but if this does go back, I think that might be a little bit of a blessing, and it looks like it is going back. So perhaps that didn't come off as she'd intended, but I also think that perhaps that wasn't the opportune option for that moment.
Yes. Let's see if we can be a bit more calm this time round. We can, and flicking forward to Jetta Badol for her first point of the game.
And that was the opportune option.
that was the choice that she was looking for.
Second chance at that play, and that came off very nicely. So,
Selena Scholten. And we've recorded that as a stat as a throwaway and an assist. So we're just making note. We're recording it as a throwaway.
Very impressive to manage a throwaway and an assist, in a single
pass. That's right. It's a 11-7 out here, and Grut with those 2 breaks in a row, re-establishing their superiority in this game.
Wind's picking up a little bit. I mean, so far, I think, as has been clear from these beautiful overheads, I mean, not counting the last one, the overheads that have come over the zone have been very crisp and very clear and unaffected by any kind of wind. It's been very still this morning. Sort of just feeling a bit of a breeze picking up now, which I'm not sure it's going to have a big impact on the game, but it's of course something for the team to be aware of. And particularly might come into play a little bit later in the day if it continues.
There's some love for your commentary. The female commentator alongside me is Rachel Douglas, a fresh voice behind the microphone. Ex-Iceni and Sick, bringing you analysis. Carrying a little bit of an injury at the moment, Rachel, but we're very pleased that what Sick are missing out on, we're benefiting from your experience and your analysis here in the commentary box, and it's getting appreciated out here in internet land as well.
Great, I appreciate that. I did set up a Twitter page for what I assume is about to be my commentary journey. So @HeckleDoug, if you'd like to send any feedback, positive or negative, all appreciated. If it's funny, even better. @HeckleDoug.
Well, I'm sure that will be very well used. Bolognese now for Discobolo, finding a gap at the front corner and finds its way in. Marta De Luca cutting free. Discobolo with a hold. And they're going to need to find something in a short measure of time. The hooter is not far away. The game ends at the end of the point after the hooter, and unless the teams are tied, that's the end of the game. So we are expecting this one to go the way of Grut. They've done enough. The time is running short. Discobolo have got some work to do if they want to rescue this game.
Yeah, Discobolo I think slightly so to start, but we've really seen them build over the course of the game, and I think they really have answered Grut's growing intensity with their own. It's been a kind of a shifting momentum. There's been shifting momentum throughout the game. It will be very interesting to see where, after this game plays out, however it goes, where Discobolo go and how their subsequent games follow up. Because if they can maintain this energy and this trajectory that they're on, I think they'll come into their next games really strong. And I think if they're able to not allow themselves to drop those first few points at the beginning of the game, they'll be in a much better position, of course, and able to be contesting some of these competitive games right from the start.
Yeah, the Grut have looked like the better team, and certainly the more rounded team. Their stats are so much more evenly distributed than Discobolo's. Discobolo very much relying on people like Venturi and Berna and Marta De Luca for their and Capello, but Grut have got stats from pretty much everybody in the team. So that's going to be serving them well as the weekend wears on, but they've definitely got some things to work on after this opener. Shelena Scholten, maybe the wrong edge of that disc down, it's going to die away. Now, if that had the other curve on it, Izamonku was ready and available for her 4th point of the game, but just a little execution error.
Yeah, Monku was making a really nice deep cut there, but it did look like she had a defender right on her shoulder. It's that number 12, Munsterhaus. I'm butchering that name, I'm sure. Who was tight with her. So I do think that might have been a case of sort of like throwing the throw that's designed in the play. Maybe the throw wasn't quite the option that they thought it would be, but I also think that the Discobolos were doing a great job to keep pressure on all the players there and kind of maybe making that still not the option that they should have been looking to take.
They've given it back to Grut now. Cullen. Oh, it's the wrong choice again. Cullen with her hands on her head, she knows and is frustrated. Janssen had made a good cut after her opening throw, but this is a poor execution from both teams. Again, that shot, I think that was Venturi. I'm not sure what she saw, but it definitely wasn't where the disc ended up. Grut with a second opportunity to show how they can execute into this end zone.
Yeah, I think Venturi just getting a bit trigger happy there, unfortunately.
Bardol. Cullen floats it downfield. It's going to need a little bit more float again. Frustrated with herself. The cut from Leniger was there.
I think that pass was intended, I think, to just have a little bit more sit, to be a little bit higher. There was a lot of touch on the disc. The disc wasn't moving too quickly, but it just unfortunately came in that bit too low for there to be a viable play on that. So I think the frustration there was that it was very close to being an excellent option, but unfortunately in the execution it just wasn't able to come off.
Oh, there we go. Marta Cullen working hard to get it back. Just gets the block, almost a Callahan. And easier this time. And who's it at the end of all of that action with 2 turnovers in the point? Cullen eventually brings it down for the goal. And she'll be pleased and somewhat relieved about that.
Yeah, it's great to be able to kind of brush away the frustration of having a turn or two with the sort of the positive end result of getting the score. So a great way to sort of manage the disappointment of some play in the middle of the point by securing the point for your team at the end.
Yeah, Tom's Tourney in the sun here in Bruges, bringing back the ultimate scene to the European elite level. A tournament long. All 3 days of the tournament brought to you live by the Ulti TV crew on the Tom's Tourney YouTube channel. Delighted to be here. Myself, Tom Stiles, alongside Rachel Douglas, opening the weekend up with this women's game, Grut and Discobolo. And we have got games all weekend. If you wouldn't mind doing us a quick favour while you're here and you're watching, just hit that like button. Every bit of information we can give the algorithm will tell people how awesome Ultimate is and how much you've enjoyed watching it. It doesn't cost you a penny. If you would like to contribute a little bit more, Ulti TV have also got a Patreon which you can subscribe to, and that'll help us bring more coverage from around the continent. Capello. She's been solid in the middle of the field for Discobolo. Finds the disc across to Giada Bolognese. Reset. Back across to Schiavoni. Schiavoni surveys the field. Has the attentions of Suzanne Schlob to deal with. Hands low. Just taking a bit of a step back, trying to change the angles a little bit with the options for the thrower. Bolognese again, a big layout from Schlob, but she knew she wasn't quite going to get there as she went to ground. Picks herself up, Negrini into the end zone, and it's picked off a little bit too easily. The target was Capello, but Lola down there snagging that one and taking it out of the air. Elise Bowes just surveying the field again. This time she finds a nice undercut. Came from Franca 10K, who floats it into the end zone. It's beautifully put. It's beautifully run down. Inky Musquet with her first point of the game. And Franca 10K having done that great work cutting underneath. She went deep, she came back underneath, and then she assisted with class. And that is the end of the game. Grut winning this one eventually with quite a good margin, but it's been an exciting game, Rachel.
Yeah, really exciting. I think Discobolo did an excellent job of getting themselves back into that game after going down at the beginning. They showed that they had that sort of grit and determination to bring up their own energy, to really focus themselves and try and make sure they're giving Grut a good game, which I think they certainly did. We could see towards the second half, through the second half and towards the end of that game, that Grut were really under pressure. They started making mistakes that they just weren't making in those first few points, and I think that's really a big testament to the pressure that they were being put under by Discobolo and the defensive effort that they were putting in. So I think that was an excellent first game for the tournament. I think it's really exciting what it shows that we're going to be able to expect from the women's division. And I think both of these teams are going to come away with some lessons, some highlights and some lessons, and things that they can take forward into their next games.
We'll be back all weekend here in Tom's Tourney. Myself, Tom Stiles, and Rachel Douglas bringing you this opener from Tom's Tourney. Thanks very much for watching. And Is No Good versus Kapow will be your next game here with Michael Paul and Didzis Maldaris. So stay watching all weekend.